section we're going to go over is the prospecting evaluation. Okay. So when you guys start this evaluation, you're going to be sitting in one of the classrooms at the Recruiting and Retention College, and you're going to be given a little bit of blueprinting information for the individual that you're going to be trying to contact. So that's going to consist of a first and last name, of a education code, and the last high school attended, right? So you're going to have your rubric that you're going to be studying the night before. You're going to get that information. You're going to go downstairs in the Recruiting and Retention College. You're going to go into a room, and you're going to have 2 minutes after you get sat down in the room where you can write anything that you want on a piece of paper, right? So over that 2 minutes, I would highly suggest whatever acronyms or whatever things that you try and memorize to key yourself to hit all the parts of the rubric. That's your 2 minutes to get all that stuff down before the actual telephone call starts. Because for prospecting, we're looking at doing the telephone call. So at the end of 2 minutes, then you're going to pick up a hardline phone. You're going to call your evaluator, and that's going to start the prospecting evaluation. So what I'd like to do today is we're just going to go step by step on the rubric and kind of talk through everything. Okay. So when we look at the first task and identify yourself in the Army, it says establish contact with the lead using the required platform. It's going to be phone. Identified yourself in the U.S. Army, and you got to be professional. So what that means is that if you're calling John Hand, the first thing you need to say is, hello, this is Sergeant French with the United States Army. Is John available? Right? If you pick up the phone and you say, hey, is John there? You automatically go down to 60% on that one, and it's a big hit for something that's really easy. So you want to key into yourself, identify yourself in the Army, and then ask for the person. So the next step, initiate rapport conversation with an introductory message that's relative to the lead, letting them know that you know something about him or her obtained while blueprinting. So like I said, you're only going to get 3 pieces of information. You're going to get their name, their ed code, and the last high school attended. So the only thing you're really going to have to go off of is, so I see you're currently a senior at such and such high school. Congratulations on making it this far. Not everyone is able to get there. That is initiating rapport and conversation. It's relative to the lead and it lets them know that you know something about them that you obtained while blueprinting, right? So you can use whatever icebreaker you want, but you have to hit those key parts to get 100%. So then we go into continued rapport with follow-up statements. And then we don't have to worry about ask permission because we're already on the phone, right? So a follow-up statement would be something along the lines of, how's senior year going for you? Have you thought about what you're going to do over the summer? Those kind of things, right? So you continue rapport, you continue with follow-up statements, and then ask open-ended fact-finding questions relative to the market to generate conversation from the lead. So you're essentially just going to continue to ask questions. Have you given thought about what you're going to do after summer? Have you given thought about what you want to do with your life now that you're going to be a graduate of high school, right? And so when you start getting those open-ended fact-finding questions going, that's when you can say the reason for the call is a big one, right? Well, I'm glad I got a hold of you today because the reason I'm reaching out is I can help you to identify your goals and develop strategies to achieve them. So you said that you want to go to college after school. Well, I can help you do that because I'm here to help you develop a strategy to get your college education, to get the degree that you want, to start that business that you're talking about, right? So that's stating the reason for the call. After that, use patience, show genuine interest while asking open-ended questions to gather the lead's aspirations, dreams, and goals. So this is the first one where I would specifically write down something in your notes, okay? We're going to go over the 5 W's and the 2 H's. So the 5 W's consist of what? What do you want to do 5 years from now? What do you want to do with your life? What is your goal? What is your passion? However you want to ask that what question, it's going to be what they want to do, what their goal, dream, or aspiration is. Then, showing genuine interest, we're going to hit the next two W's. Why do you want to get a college degree in astronomical engineering, right? Whatever it is. Why do you want to do it? The genuine interest is after you get that first why, you ask why again. Is there any other reason why you want to do it? So you have what they want to do, why they want to do it, any other reason why. Then we're going to dig into how we're going to develop a plan. The next W is when do you want to do it? When do you want to accomplish this goal? Then you're going to talk about where do you want to do this? You know, if they're talking about college, is it going to be a local college? Do they want to go down to Alabama? What is it that where do they want to go to get it done? So that's your 5 W's. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Is there any other reason why? Where do you want to do it? And when do you want to accomplish it? So after the 5 W's, we're going to do the 2 H's. So the 2 H's is how much is it going to cost you to achieve this goal? And the second H is how are you going to pay for it? So with those 5 W's and 2 H's, when you get that information, that's how you're going to start thinking in the back of your head what Army programs or training or things that the Army can offer would help them accomplish that aspiration, dream, or goal. So moving into this, that's how you're going to communicate your role as a counselor. So I see here that you said that you want to get a bachelor's degree in astronomical engineering at Alabama. Well, I'm glad I got a hold of you because the Army actually has a couple of different programs that could help you achieve that goal. One being tuition assistance that offers $4,000 a year towards your college education, and the other one being the post 9/11 GI Bill that'll pay so much per month, right? So that's how you're communicating your role as a counselor. You have to briefly describe Army training or educational programs and how they can assist them. So you can't just say, well, we have tuition assistance in the GI Bill. No, you have to say how tuition assistance would help them, how the GI Bill would help them before you move on, right? So after you tell them how those two programs, two options, two benefits would be able to help them, you're going to reiterate your ability to help them in developing a plan, right? Now, remember, John, you know, like I stated, I'm contacting you because I can help you develop a plan to achieve your goal of getting a degree in astronomical engineering at Alabama. So reiterate your ability, and then we're going into engender the commitment. Now, explain to personal meeting is necessary. So for us to be able to develop that plan, I would need to sit down with you one-on-one to discuss all the options available to you and help you develop that plan. So with that being said, we got past explain to personal meeting is necessary. Now we're going to ask for the appointment, right? So we have to give them a choice of date and time and two different locations. So the easiest way to do that is tomorrow or the day after, their house or the office, and then two different times. So with that being said, John, I have a meeting available tomorrow at 5 o'clock at the recruiting station, or I can meet you the following day at your house at 3 o'clock. Which one works for you? Right? So I just gave them two different dates, two different times, two different locations to choose from.
And sorry, French. One of the things I always remember that this part here would trip some people up just because they would always give different dates and times. You can practice this by always giving the same dates, same times, same locations. Like our friend said, always the person's house, always the person and the recruiting center, and make the same dates and same times. It's always today and tomorrow, always at 5 o'clock. If you practice this the same way, it's just one less thing that you have to memorize and will trip you up. You know, if you keep practicing the different routines so that when you're actually doing this in the graded environment, it's just one less thing you have to memorize, and it won't mess you up, trip you up when you're going through these steps.
Yep. Keep it simple, right? Tomorrow or the day after, 3 or 5 o'clock, your house or the recruiting station. There you got 2 dates, 2 times, 2 locations. Practice that over and over and over again. And that's a step you don't even got to worry about. So, next one is going to be work through any objections. So if they say, nah, I don't know, right? Then you start working on the objections. That's going to be covered in a later class. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. But after you overcome the objection, right? Ask for an appointment offering a choice of date and time. After they chose the date and time, give them 2 different locations to choose from. So, like I said, I have tomorrow at 3 or the next day at 5. Which one works? They pick one. Okay, like I said, we can meet at your house or the office. Which one works? And then they say, at your office. You have to repeat it back to them. So make sure you're writing that down on your piece of paper as you're going. Okay. So you said that we're going to meet tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the recruiting station. That way you're ensuring that there's a mutual understanding. Okay. Now comes to one of the fun parts. Okay. So determine if they are mentally, medically, or morally qualified by asking a minimum of 1 question per area, Apple MDT, and mentioning the Privacy Act in accordance with AR 25-22. So you get done, you say, okay, so we're going to meet tomorrow, 5 o'clock, recruiting station. Before I let you go, John, there's a couple more questions I need to ask you just to make sure there's nothing that could potentially disqualify yourself. Now, I want you to realize that everything we talk about is covered under the Privacy Act in accordance with AR 25-22. So, what questions are we going to ask here? Well, to know that, we can go into UTC 5-03.1, which is prospecting. This one just says essentially 1 question, right? Well, over here it says we have to ask 1 question per area of Apple MDT. So 5-03.1 really doesn't cover that. But if we go to 5-03.2 for the Army interview, we have the validate qualification. Here's where it's talking about Apple MDT. So here's where we get a list of questions that you're going to need to start memorizing. Okay. So you can just go down the line. You can do the first question from each one. You can do 3 questions from each one. You can try and get every single question that you can get knocked out. My suggestion and what I did when I went through is I tried and get every single question that I could possibly think of answered in the phone call, because you're going to have to go back over these when you do the Army interview. So if you mark down how many questions are supposed to be per section of Apple MDT, so you know there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in age. So I'm doing 6 tick marks in age as I'm going through the questions. If I only get 5 of them in between the phone call and the Army interview, I can go back and see what question I missed and then make sure I hit that question in the Army interview. Because you only have to get 1 per area for prospecting, but you have to get every single question in the Army interview. So UTC 5-03.2, 4-12 is going to be where you need to start going to memorize these questions. So once you're done with testing, John, have you ever taken the ASVAB before? And if you have, what was your score and when did you take it? No, I haven't. Awesome. Okay. So just to reiterate, John, we're looking at meeting tomorrow, 5 o'clock at the recruiting station to talk about your plan to get to Alabama University to get a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering. Before I let you go, we're going to ask for a referral. Whom do you know that could benefit from getting some of the development towards their goals like we talked about today? It has to be open-ended. It can't be, do you know someone? It has to be who or whom. One of those 2. Those are the questions your evaluators are going to look for. The who or the whom do you know? That's also an easy one that a lot of people tend to forget at the very end because they're like, all right, done with Apple MDT. they take a deep breath, and they forget to ask for the referral. So going down here, these are kind of icing on the cake sections, right? It's not really part of the steps, but it's part of the overall prospecting event itself. So in using the adaptive approach counseling techniques to make them see the value of speaking to a recruiter, tailored to the lead, listen just as well as talked. So we knock those out by doing the 5 W's and the 2 H's. And then right after that, when we're talking about the Army programs and how they can help, we're talking counseling techniques, the value of speaking to a recruiter, and it being tailored to the lead. So if they tell you that they want to open a automotive shop and you're talking about tuition assistance and the GI Bill, you may get marked down on that by the evaluator, depending on how you tied that in to achieving their goal of getting the automotive shop. During the conversation, ask follow-on questions, restated what the prospect had said, listen carefully to the prospect, conveyed sincerity. That's just paying attention, right? That's active listening throughout the process and adjusting how you're reacting and what you're saying to that lead off of what they're telling you their goal, passion, dream, or desire is. So that's a brief rundown of the rubric. At this point, I'll open it up to questions from you guys of anything you want to know about how it's going to go.
All right, Sergeant French, I have a question.
Sure.
All right, so we'll start straight from the top here, where it says establish contact with lead using the required platform: text, phone, face-to-face, virtual. Identify itself and the U.S. Army. Language was professional. File think type post was pleasant, upbeat. So, can you explain how you're going to integrate using social media?
Or not.
So you're not going to be using the social media?
Nope. So
Okay.
our required platform is going to be phone.
Okay. So you confirmed that with Sergeant Tenney?
I did.
I figured that. Okay, cool.
My only question was, I think you answered it, was so during the telephone call, when we're going through Apple MDT, there's going to be one of the questions we have to ask per letter, but in the Army interview, we got to use the whole thing, right?
Correct.
All right.
And you have to hit every single question in the Army interview. Now, you don't necessarily have to hit it verbatim, but you have to hit the premise of every single question in the Army interview.
Okay, too easy.
I got one real quick.
Okay.
Did we go over a time frame or something? Like, is there a slotted time? I didn't hear that part.
Yes. So you're going to have 2 minutes before it starts with a blank sheet of paper that you can write down whatever you want. Once the telephone call starts, you're going to have 15 minutes from the start of the phone call to when time's going to cut off. Now, I'll tell you just from experience, because I've been evaluating students on the phone call for 3 years now, I've never had anybody go anywhere near 15 minutes. You know, I think typically somewhere around 7 to 9.
Okay,
Sir,
cool. Appreciate it.
Sir French, did you explain, and I might have missed it if you did, how the phone call is linear, that you can't cross certain lines and go back to missed parts?
Yeah.
Could you go over that, please?
Yes. So as you go through this, you're going to hit every single task in order, right? So there's some things you can't do out of order within a sub-step, like in the beginning when you're establishing contact. You can't say, hello, is John available? This is Sergeant French with the U.S. Army. That's a no-go, right? But the main ones are these double lines here are solid. So once you communicate to the lead your ability to help them identify their goals and develop strategies, you can't go back and continue to ask open-ended fact-finding questions to generate conversation. You know, once you start asking the 5 W's and the 2 H's to show patience and genuine interest, you can't go back and be like, oh yeah, by the way, you know, I'm here to help you develop strategies to achieve your goals. You can't go back over a double line, right? But if I'm talking about programs, options, benefits that could help them realize their goal. And I realized that I didn't ask them how much is going to pay or how much it's going to cost or how they're going to pay for it. I can go back and ask those 2 questions because I haven't gone over a double line. But once I reiterate that I'm here to help them develop a plan to achieve their goal, I can't go back and talk about tuition assistance or training of choice. Does that make sense?
That does make sense to me.
It makes sense.
We still got about what, 25 minutes?
Well, I have another question. If Sergeant Perez or Sergeant Clone don't have any additional questions.
Now, I had a question. So the packet that we got sent out, I think from USAREC, with other rubrics and stuff, it's the same one that you're showing us right now, Sergeant? Like the study material they sent out?
Yes, this should be the exact same rubric that's in the MRB hopped MOI that they sent out. This is just the original copy before they shoved it in the PDF.
Okay, too easy.
So another quick question I have for you, Sergeant French. On a blank screen, could you show us the shorthand that you write before you do go into your telephone call?
Yeah. I'm gonna type it out if that's all right.
That's all right. That'll work out perfectly. Probably even easier to see that way.
Right? Because my handwriting is atrocious.
And probably even better with a mouse, right? And then after that, I'll role play a phone call with you just so everyone can see how they do it. And then maybe,
I'll explain what they are as soon as I get them written down.
yeah, then maybe you could save and send it to me, and I can share it with the teammates so they can possibly practice it.
Probably clean it up a little bit.
There you go.
What? Do that stuff.
You broke the internet.
Doing it again. Oh, hit a wrong button on that one. Normally, I don't remember them off the top of my head. I would have to look. It's There we go. All right. So this is how I do mine. So I'm going to start out, and I always write these three out so I get them in the right order, right? Hello, this is Sergeant French with the United States Army. Is John available? This is him. Hey, John, I'm glad I got a hold of you today. I just want to say congratulations on making it through your senior year. You know, a lot of people don't actually make it that far. Have you given any thought to what you want to do over the summer after you graduate? Have you given any thought what's going to happen after summer? So that's rapport, future thoughts. Well, I'm glad I got a hold of you today because I'm actually here to help you develop strategies to achieve whatever goals you may have in life. Then I'm going to hit the 5 W's and the 2 H's. I'm probably going to write these down over here as I'm going. So that way I have an idea of what I'm working with. POB, right? I write these down all the time when I'm evaluating people. So you need to talk about a program, an option, or a benefit of the Army. So I'm going to mark which one of those I did and then explain it. And then I'm going to do another program, option, or benefit. That way I talk about two, right? So tuition assistance, GI Bill, training of choice, leadership training, you know, whatever it is, you know, benefit is like an intangible benefit, things that you can't really buy that the Army offers you. Okay. Now, after I talk about the two programs, options, benefits, you know, now remember, Johnny, you know, I'm here to help you develop a plan to achieve your goal of going to Alabama. And to do that, we would need to sit down and have a one-on-one meeting to help develop your plan. With that said, I have such and such date, such and such time, such and such location. So I'm going to check mark these as I go to make sure I give 2 dates, 2 times, 2 locations. They're going to tell me no. The ORJFFFL is overcoming the obstacle. And in case there's a smoke screen, I always put down 2. Once you overcome the obstacle, you go back to 2 dates, 2 times, 2 locations. And then for me, I write Apple MDT. So that way I know after they agree to the appointment and hold on. Oh yeah, I missed one.
Yeah, we put you in the spot. Yeah.
I know. So 2 dates, 2 times, 2 locations, repeat it back to them, make sure there's a shared understanding. Then I'm going to take them into the prequal. So Privacy Act and then Apple MDT. So I write the number next to it so I know how many questions that I should be asking. If you want to write like keywords from each question, you can do that too. And then I check them off as I go. That's one of the most important things I can tell you is if you write down stuff that you have to do as tasks throughout the Army interview, check mark through them, X them out, do something to mark as you go so you can see that you are finishing them as you go along. You know, just having Apple MDT and numbers, you know, you may see the L, but skip over it. And you're like, well, I had it on my paper. Yeah, but you didn't check mark it as you talked about. Have you ever had any dealings with law enforcement to include speeding tickets, to include military police, you know, all those kind of things? Once you get done with Apple MDT, reiterate, you know, you're going to sit down, talk to them, when, where, all that stuff, just to be nice, and then ask for the referral saying who or whom. And if you memorize that, that essentially, at a minimum, is going to get you 80%. Just by being able to check mark every single one of those.
Looks good to me. Sergeant Clones on Prez, do you have any questions about that? Any other facilitators have anything else to add?
I don't. It's a really good checklist. I'm gonna use that same one, similar, write down something like that.
Yeah, if you send it out, I already screenshot it just in case.
That and it's recorded, right?
Yeah, it's recorded. Yep, again, it's recorded. We'll upload it. It says, I know if you look at the top, it looks like an hour, but it's actually only recorded the last 45 minutes. So, but yeah, we'll get it all sent out.
So many things going on. So we're gonna do. Oh, we got 15 minutes left. We can knock one out.
I'm ready when you are.
Do we want to go over? Are you gonna give me an obstacle just so I can work through them?
Sure.
Sweet. All right, so I'm sitting on the second floor of the RRC. They say, "Hey, Sergeant French, you're next. Here's your paper." So they show me I'm going to be calling John Hand. He's a senior at Fort Knox High School. So we're walking downstairs. We go into a little room. They set me at a desk. My evaluator gives me a little brief and then says, "Okay, you have 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, you need to pick up the phone and start calling your lead." They walk out. I'm going to start writing down all of this stuff, right? I think I timed it out and I can write all that in about a minute and 10 to a minute and 20 seconds. So my 2 minutes are up. Now I'm going to start the phone call. Ring, 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 ring.
Hello?
Hello, this is Sergeant French with the United States Army. Is John available?
This is him.
Hey, John, how's your day going?
Good.
Good. Well, I'm glad I got a hold of you. I see that you're currently a senior attending Fort Knox High School. First off, on behalf of myself and the Army, I would just like to congratulate you on making it all the way to your senior year. That's a achievement that not a lot of individuals across the country are actually able to achieve.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. You'd be surprised looking across the country how many people aren't able to finish just their high school education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, have you given any thought to what you're going to do over the summer?
No, just hanging out.
Oh, okay. So, what about after the summer? Have you given thought to what you're going to do next year, like maybe college or starting a job?
Yeah, I'll probably just go to community college.
Going to community college. That's awesome. Well, John, I'm glad I got a hold of you today because I'm actually contacting you to help develop a strategy to achieve any goal, passion, dream, or desire that you have. So you're saying that you want to go to community college after summer, you know, what is it that you want to do with your life? What do you want to accomplish with that?
I think I'm gonna be a mechanic.
A mechanic. That's awesome. So, John, why do you want to be a mechanic?
I hear they make a lot of money.
Oh, okay. Is there any other reason why you want to become a mechanic?
My dad was a mechanic.
Oh, okay. So like following a family tradition kind of thing.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. And you said you want to go to community college. Is that where you want to get your training for mechanics? Or are you going to go to the shop program that they have
Yeah,
there?
they have a good like mechanic certificate program there.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said that you're wanting to do this starting right after the summer. So that's when you're going to start community college?
Yeah, in September.
Okay. Do you know how much it's going to cost you to get your ASC certification from the community college?
Well, I didn't even know that was the name of it, so not really.
Oh, okay. But you knew there was going to be some costs associated with getting that education, right?
Yeah. So I know it was gonna cost something.
Okay. So have you given any thought to how you're going to pay for that?
I was just gonna ask my parents to pay for it.
Asking your parents. Okay, that's one way. Well, I'm glad I got a hold of you today because there's actually a couple of different things that the Army could offer to help you achieve that goal of getting your ASC certification in mechanics and working in a mechanic shop. One of the first programs that we have available is the tuition assistance that's available for all soldiers who join the Army. We give you $4,000 a year to continue your education, and that's whether it's active duty, Army Reserve, either way. But one of the other things that the Army offers is actually option 3, right? And so what that's called is training of choice. So when you enlist in the Army, you actually get to pick the training that you're going to get to serve in the Army and do that in. And we actually
Oh,
have we have an entire career field that deals with working on vehicles, engines, all kinds of stuff, like tanks. Have you ever
oh,
thought about, working on the engine of a tank?
yeah. I hear they have like jet engines or something like that.
Right? It's pretty crazy. So I'm glad I got a hold of you because, like I said, I'm here to help you develop a plan to achieve your goal of becoming a mechanic. But to be able to do that, we would have to sit down and have a one-on-one meeting so that I could go over your specific plan and how you're going to achieve it. So with that being said, John, I have tomorrow at 3 o'clock at my office available, or the following day at 5 o'clock and I can come out and meet you at your house? Which one sounds better?
To talk about joining the army?
Well, to talk about how we could develop a plan to achieve your goal of getting your ASC certification and, working in your own mechanic shop.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's right for me.
Okay. Well, John, obviously you have a reason for saying that. Do you mind me asking what it is?
Yeah, if a drill sergeant got in my face, I'd probably punch him.
So what you're saying is that you don't want to sit down with me because if a drill sergeant got in your face, you would punch him.
Yeah, I'm badass.
Okay. Well, just suppose I told you that the drill sergeant isn't going to get in your face. Then would you be willing to come in and sit down with me to talk about your plans?
Oh, they don't do that anymore?
Well, I'm saying just suppose that wasn't real. Then would you come and sit down with me?
Oh yeah, okay. If that wasn't real, I would sit down and talk with you.
Okay, John. Well, I feel where you're coming from. I felt the same way when I enlisted all the way back in 2005 when things were a lot different in the Army. But what I found out is that the Army has moved to a people first strategy across the entire Army. And we learned that our number one resource is the people that serve in the Army itself. So while the drill sergeants may be loud. They're not going to be physically aggressive with you. They're just trying to get the point across to a large group of people in the best way possible to accomplish whatever task they're trying to do. Now, logically, I would hate for you to miss out on the opportunity to develop a plan to achieve your goal of becoming a mechanic because of a misperceived, idea of how basic training is going to be. So with that being said, I do have tomorrow at 3 o'clock or the following day at 5 o'clock. Which
Uh,
one of those sounds better?
I'm free tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Okay. And like I said, we can meet at your house or we can meet at my office. Which one's better?
Yeah, if you can come to my house, that'd be great.
Okay, John. So I have you down for 3 o'clock tomorrow, and I'm gonna drive out to your house and talk about, all the things that we're able to help you with. That sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, John. So before I let you go, there's just a couple of questions that I have to ask you about. And I want to let you know that everything that we talk about is covered under the Privacy Act in accordance with AR 25-22. Okay?
Okay.
So the first question I have is what is your date of birth?
18 years ago today.
Awesome. Okay. And have you ever served in any branch of the armed forces to include the Reserve or National Guard?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had to see a doctor for anything other than just a regular checkup?
I had my appendix removed
You had your appendix removed. Okay. And what year did you have your appendix removed?
about 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Okay. Was there any complications with that?
No, it was just normal.
Awesome. Okay. And have you ever had any dealings with law enforcement for any reason to include tickets?
Nope.
Okay. And are you currently on track to graduate from Fort Knox High School?
Yes.
Okay. Are you married or are you planning on getting married?
No.
Okay. Is anybody dependent on you for moral, financial, or legal support?
No.
Okay. Have you ever taken the ASVAB before? And if so, what was your score and when did you take it?
I never took the ASVAB before.
Awesome. Okay, John. So, from what I got there, I don't see anything that's going to stop you from being able to get all this information about how you can achieve your goal of becoming a mechanic. So, just want to reiterate, we're going to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. at your house to discuss everything. Before I let you go, one last question. Whom do you know that could benefit from getting information about how to achieve their goal, passion, dream, or desire?
I have an older brother that still lives at home.
Oh, okay. What's your older brother's name?
Timmy.
Timmy. Okay, and same last name, Hand?
Yeah, same last name. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a phone number or a contact method I could reach Timmy at?
Yeah, his number's 867-5309.
Okay, and same area code?
Yep, same area code.
Alrighty. Well, I appreciate it, John. If you have any questions between now and then, feel free to give me a call. This is my number.
All right. I got saved.
Sweet. So, how did I do?
Well, I think you went over everything. You overcame the objection. And for Sergeant Cologne, Sergeant Perez, just remember, you don't have to knock the objection out of the park either. If you just go through the steps of overcoming the objection, the grader isn't, who's probably in this group chat, by the way, isn't going to try and trip you up too much. If you go through the steps, you're going to get through it, and they're not going to keep trying to trip you up. Although if you don't go through the steps, they may keep objecting, trying to get you to go through the steps. Right, Sergeant French?
Yep, definitely.
But if you go through the steps, even if it's like a poor objection, like you say, oh, I don't want to cut my hair, and you overcome it with something, I don't know. I heard some bad ORJs, field felt founds before. But if you go through the steps, even if it doesn't quite make sense, you're going to hit that step, and the role player is going to keep moving on. But if you don't go through the steps, you're just not going to get through that step, and the role player is going to not going to let you move on past that.
Yep. Like on the just suppose for determine if it's a smoke screen. If you don't actually ask the right question to determine is this a real objection or a smoke screen, and you just move straight into field felt found and logic, when you ask me again, I'm gonna tell you no again.
Yeah.
So that you have a second chance to go through that objection.
Yeah.
I would say
So-
after 2, you're probably just gonna get moved on after that.
And get a the 0% failed to meet standards for that event. So it's
Well,
it's kind
it depends on what they missed.
yeah,
So
because it's
if
a little different grading
someone,
this
if
year
you
than was
skip,
last year.
so if you skip logic, or not logic, if you skip the check for smoke screen, you're down to 60% on working through the objection.
So again, they are doing a little different grading rubric this year. So it's the one they actually use in the schoolhouse. So it'll be interesting to see how well everyone does in this event. So I think that's our time for this today. How are we doing on time? Actually, we actually have till 11 for this,
I know.
so that's good.
100%.
Yeah. Sergeant Perez, Sergeant Cologne, do you have any other questions about conducting the phone call or prospecting event?
No, I didn't know, Sergeant. It was very good. Block of instructions.
Okay, cool. Let's take if that's okay with Sergeant Davis, can we take a 10-minute break and then come back and maybe do I don't know. Do you want to move on to the next block of instructions? Maybe move on to developing the interview book, or do you want to go into keep going to another phone call? Let's take 10 minutes and then we'll come back and figure out where we go next, whether we want to do another phone call. Sergeant Perez, Sergeant Cologne, you guys feel comfortable? Do you want to try to do a phone call? And
Yeah, if we have time, I don't mind practicing.
yeah, we absolutely have time. We have to 11 for phone call. So let's take 10 minutes and then Sergeant Cologne, we'll just go into a phone call. You can use your notes, you can use whatever, just so you can start getting comfortable doing it. So let's take 10 minutes. We'll come back. Let's come back at 10:10 and then we'll Sergeant Cologne, you're up, okay?
Roger.
All right. 10:10. We'll see you guys at 10:10.